Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beaver Mosh, here today to talk to you about the new Morbikon album of Mournful, Twilight, coming off of Tank Crimes. Now this is the first full-length record from this project, and I would describe Morbikon's sound as being a more melodic take on black metal, and a melodic black metal that showcases some very noticeable thrash influences, which is something that makes a lot of sense considering that this project features two members from the thrash band Municipal Waste. And those members join forces with the vocalist Vreth from the band Fintroll. And it's pretty cool seeing these more established metalers sort of branching out and exploring different avenues in extreme metal than the ones that they typically record in and are used to, and kind of showcasing an appreciation for other branches within metal music. Now, this album wastes really no time whatsoever. Consumed by Entropy has no real intro at all. It's just right off the gate with this very screeching guitar lead. The drums come in full blast. You got these very frenetic riffs, and the vocals from Vreth are harsh and they're very vicious, but at the same time, I wouldn't say they're catchy, but there is a real tunefulness to them. These are very tuneful vocal deliveries. Universal Funeral is kind of the first promotional single that was put out for this album, and you get these very murky, almost jumpy riffs and these melodic lines that are sort of elemental that sit on top. And the sound here is sleek and bright, but in a way that actually is designed to amplify the jagged edges of this record instead of kind of compressing them. You also, later on in this song, get this really sweet, cool, thrashy inspired guitar solo. You know, the thrash elements that I mentioned, they are here, and you can find them, and they do give this record a bit of a different edge to it. Curse to March on Shattered Limbs is one of the longer, more ambitious cuts on the album. Things kind of get started with these very pagan-esque acoustic guitars that sort of nest these kind of weeping electric leads, but that's before we're kind of led into these really nice, very circular metal riffs. The band's melodicism also really comes through on this track, but not in a way that sacrifices the overall darkness that is such a pivotal part of this record's identity. I also really like what the bass is doing on this track in particular, but really the album as a whole. But on this track, well, it's there to add some meatiness for sure. It seems to do something totally separate from what the guitar is doing. Oftentimes, the bass within black metal, but really a lot of times in metal in general, the bass sort of echoes the guitar and sort of plays a very similar pattern, kind of the same chord and note switches in a way to sort of be there for texture's sake, which is often what is good for that track that that bass is doing on. But it doesn't do that here. It does something very different. The bass sort of plays a parallel line to what the guitar is doing in a way that's there to complement but give a contrast to the guitar in a very cool, very unique way. There's also this really cavey midsection. You get these slower, almost mosh-ready riffs. The drums do this really pronounced drum, snare, and tom smash bit. And the vocals are considerably lower than previous tracks and gruff. Death Thirst is a total onslaught. You get these unrelenting and unforgiving textures that are a result of the drums and the guitars and the bass working together and sort of meshing to create these very punishing attacks. The guitars later on do this really cool sort of harmonizing thing, and it's sort of echoed by what and repeated by the vocals to a similar effect. There's these couple of moments where you get these higher screeches, and on sort of a separate track you get these lower growls, and they're recorded on top of each other, which gives a really nice effect. Now, I love Morbikon's ability to effortlessly switch from their very fast sections to more slower, murkier bits. And they do that very well, and it's very noticeable on this song in particular. The title track here, you get these really spacey synths, and the vocals kind of creep in, but they start off a lot quieter than what we have heard before. To my ears, what I'm guessing is happening is that the vocalist is recording a bit away from the mic and gradually coming closer in. I could be off. It could just be a studio trick, but it sounds like what's happening. Also, about a minute and a half into this track, you get probably the most purely thrash metal leaning riff here. It's very heavy. It's chunky. It has that punky edge you'd expect from thrash metal. Now, Born of Phantom Vessels, I love the more sci-fi-ish samples and the really ominous synths, which give room for breath to give these much more theatrical vocals. This track sort of leans into more like traditional symphonic black metal territory, which is something I'm okay with. I'm cool with. That's not a dirty word for me. Symphonic black metal, in this context, it works. Morbikon, I've seen described as blackened thrash. In fact, if you look them up on Metal Archives, it's listed as black/thrash. And there is some accuracy to that, but it may just be semantics to say this, but I hear a band that is much more leaning into black metal that incorporates subtle touches of thrash metal versus being a thrash metal band that incorporates black metal elements. Like, I think there is a distinction that needs to be drawn there. This record sounds big, and it sounds epic, but not in a way that's too much. It maintains its harshness. Now, scattered throughout this album, you get very solid riffs and very good, very noticeable musicianship. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm really enjoying and get a kick out of hearing these metal musicians that have found their lane in certain subgenres, showcasing successfully an appreciation for other avenues within metal music and sort of kind of jumping into the broader extreme metal realm and doing it with care and admiration. If I had some criticism, and it's not major criticism whatsoever, but I do think there were a couple tracks here that did not hold their weight up to the highest moments on this record. This album could have been trimmed a little bit. I thought a couple times towards the latter half of the record, it sort of lost a little bit of steam. I noticed some ideas and some riffs and some patterns sort of being repeated or just kind of tweaked just a little bit, so where it was different but not enough to really keep my interest. But it wasn't a major issue, and that didn't happen a lot. And it's not a big enough issue to where it hampered my enjoyment of this record and stopped me from recommending it highly to you, because I do still think this is a pretty damn good record. And those are my thoughts. If you've listened to this record, please tell me what your thoughts are and leave me any feedback. I have a Twitter, which you can follow, and you can find that link in the bio of this YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Keep it metal. If you would hit that like button, subscribe if you'd be so kind, that'd be super appreciated. My name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh. Signing off.